Great. My name is Johanna Tjernström, and I'm here to talk a little bit about the YOPP visualization, the YOPPsiteMIP visualization toolkit that I have been working on developing with these very lovely people. So we heard a little bit this morning, Gunilla talking about the aims of YOPPsiteMIP and this intercomparison and looking at comparing model and observational data. And we now also heard more from Leslie about the HK table and kind of creating the MDF format. So all of this has done a lot to kind of continue furthering the process evaluation in these models. And it provides a great basis of data for these types of evaluations. But is this common file format enough to further the usability of this data set? So are there still any barriers? Because you all can probably just take the data that we have put up and go make your own nice plots and nice evaluations. But for somebody who's just starting out, so for students or for people who are maybe interested in interacting with this data set, but don't really want to spend the time creating their own tools, there is still a barrier to the usability, which is that it just comes in, the data comes in this format, and then you have to do something with it yourself. There's also a bit of a threshold there because you do need programming to be able to interact with it. So all of this kind of creates a demand for an interactive and specialized and easy to use toolkit, which will also then contribute to standardization of analysis. So that's what we've done. We've outlined 8 current use cases that are different types of plots that you will commonly see. And these have been implemented as Jupyter notebooks using the different Python libraries that you can see there. And they are currently available in a Git repository, and we are looking towards creating a portal implementation for the YOPP Data Portal at Met Norway, where you will be able to go in on web pages and look at each of these use cases and be able to interact with these plots. So a couple of examples for the different use cases. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a video that showcases the interactivity of these plots. So what you've got here is you've got the time series use case. This is a kind of previous version of it. So if you come to the booth that we have, you will see a much nicer version that also has MODF data in it. So what you're going to see in this video is basically interacting with these different widgets that make the plots interactive. So you start choosing between the two different types of this. So you have a concatenated and a stacked case. And for the concatenated case, you can choose which model day that you're using out of these 3-day forecasts to concatenate by. And going back to the stacked case, you can also choose which model you want to use. And also interact with the different sites. And you can also increase the date range or decrease the date range that you're looking at. And as you can kind of tell by this video, one of the biggest choke points we have with this code in terms of runtime is the handling of data. So that's one of the things that we're currently looking into, kind of finding a workaround for so that the plots will run a little bit smoother. So for a couple of other use cases, we have use cases for near surface variables, like the scatter1 use case, where you're just straight up comparing model and observational data. And that one also has the added benefit of a linear regression line or a one-to-one line, as you can see here. And we also have contour plot case for vertical profile data. And then a couple of more data handling intensive use cases that showcase more of this process-based analysis. So you, for instance, have the forecast error use case, which in this 2-dimensional version shows the median forecast error defined as model minus observation of the temperature for then Sodankyl and IFS. And then you have the scatter use case, which comes in 3 different kind of types. So where are we at with this? 6 out of the 8 presently outlined use cases, let's say that, are available. What we're currently working on is incorporating MODF data in this, as that hasn't been really available through the portal until now. So we're currently very firmly in the testing stages for all of this. and also developing 2 more use cases. And where we're going with this is the final implementation will be through the portal. So you'll have web pages for each of the use cases with these interactive plots. There will also be availability to download it off of Git if you want to use this as a kind of starting point for your own tools and your own use cases. And we are also looking into adding more use cases to kind of complete the suite of very many different types of tools. We're also looking into a publication which will be joint with the MDF creation toolkit that will be coming up sometime this fall. We also have a booth where we have a live demo of the time series or the scatter use case. So you can come by there and have a chat and have a play around with these tools, see if you can break them. Nobody has managed yet, except for me, really. And if you have ideas for use cases, we're very open to expanding the different types of tools that we're going to be incorporating in this. So you're very welcome to come by and have a chat. So yeah, thank you for listening. Are there any questions?
Yeah, one question of how flexible that tool is going to be or is planned to become, because in the beginning you said you want to overcome the threshold that people might not be able to program, right? But then, for example, you can show Sedancular and then a model, which I would expect is like the closest grid point, clashing a bit with what I was talking about like some talks ago, right? So then the possibility to, for example, choose a different grid point, which is in the area. Therefore, you would have to go into the Jupyter notebook, I guess, and then change it again. Is that what you would you like to have this interactive as well, or is like the idea that it's like gradually going into like the programming part there?
Yeah, Siriota is waving at me furiously. Yeah, I can answer for him. It's one of the use cases that hasn't already been implemented, which will take into consideration the models that have more grid points versus what it's now doing is just choosing one of them arbitrarily. So you will be able to kind of interact with that as well.
Since it's Python, and probably everyone who works with Python knows this kind of can be hiccup. If we use this toolbox, is your ideal idea that we just open up another environment and install everything there, or does the toolbox kind of come as an environment and just going to implement into our Python configuration? What is the idea?
I don't think we've really worked out the details in terms of how that kind of deployment would work, because like the primary use of this is through the portal, and it is as kind of quick looks and sort of for students to interact with so that you get the complete plots. And then to serve as a code base is also one of the things that makes it kind of useful, but I think we still need to iron out a couple of the details of that.
Johanna, just picking up on Roberta's talk about the variability and then your comment that you'll allow people to potentially pick different grid points, will that also mean that in the browser you'll pull up some of that information that Roberta spoke? And are the other sites looking at providing similar sort of information?
Yeah, we're currently looking into kind of how that use case is going to look, essentially. So that is definitely something that we could add in that case. So kind of have all of the information in one place. And the interactive kind of website design then works well for it as well, because then you can kind of add that in the information about the plots.
Yeah, is there any chance that you may add to that toolkit some basic read and write functions for MATLAB?
Well, I mean, kind of the point of it was to have it in Python. But I'm guessing if we expand upon both of the toolkits in terms of adding MATLAB functionalities as well, then that could be a potential future. But I'm not promising anything.
You need to ask that question of the older members of the we think MATLAB.
Well, I mean, this is kind of primarily for people who are just getting started with the data set. And since Python is so up and coming, then that makes it a good language to use for this kind of tools.
We don't think it's going to be a bore. The question is whether it will be a man.
Okay, I think we thank all the speakers, Johanna and all the other speakers for this session. And we end it.